C'est beaucoup de monde, n'est-ce pas? Ah oui. Et la plupart sont des jeunes. Oui, 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 oui. Ce sont les volontaires qui sont... Chaque année, ils sont ici. Oui, chaque année.
You can speak clearly in English because the translation is contemporary. Okay. So if you listen another voice, don't worry because of the voice of the voice of the translation. Okay. So the translation is not a consequence. Okay. It's contemporary, the same time. Okay.
Buonasera a tutti. Presento.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you.
Presento innanzitutto i nostri ospiti.
May I start by introducing our guests? To my left, Ambassador Tasnim Aslam, Ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan in Italy.
Alla mia destra, Mamadou.
To my right, Mamadou Mbaye, Ambassador for the Republic of Senegal.
Alla sua destra.
To her right, Kenan Gursoy, Ambassador of the Republic of Turkey at the Holy See in Rome.
Salamatu Hussaini.
Salamatu Suleiman, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Welcome.
Un amico di riferimento per il meeting, Franco Frattini.
And a great friend of the Rimini meeting, Mr. Franco Frattini.
Prima di dare la parola.
Before giving the floor to the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of San Marino, Mrs. Antonella Mularoni, whom, as usual, will introduce this event and is here with us. And let me once again stress the importance of the commitment of the Republic of San Marino with reference to foreign affairs issues and global issues. But before doing this, I would like to briefly introduce the importance and the topicality of today's event. I mean, over these past few days, we've been dealing a lot with freedom of religion, and we did it for specific reasons. First of all, because if there is a Rimini meeting which is entirely dedicated to the heart, well, this heart, firstly and foremost needs God, which is the only thing that gives a sense to everything which is in life. And the people who are in connection with God, who are open to religion, is a man who is not accessible to power. Power will never be able to control those people. Those people are free. And this is the exact opposite of fundamentalism. of extremism. Fundamentalism implies using the name of God to exert power. So in this project, a man who is a true religious man and who is open to God will never be a fundamentalist. And when he affirms what lies in his or her heart, she also favors the peaceful coexistence. So talking about freedom of religion does not imply defending Christians, Jews and Muslims. It is much, much more. It allows us to live in peace, to live together, enjoying the same rights and the same common good. What is extraordinary in the friendship which has been accompanying us with Minister Frattini is this has become a priority in the agenda of the Italian government. Over the past year, the Italian government has been working very hard in Europe and internationally so that freedom of religion is a prerequisite for any agreement that is reached between democratic countries and is a prerequisite for any contact with those countries that are not democratic. This is of fundamental importance. This has become the central point also of an important resolution of the European Council, and I hope this will be a guiding principle for the path which lies ahead of us. First of all, Antonella Mularoni, please.
Signor Presidente,
Mr. President, dear guests, and especially a warm welcome to all the members of the audience. I would like to thank the Rimini meeting, which within a long-standing cooperation this year yet again offers me the opportunity to be here with us to extend a warm welcome on behalf of the Republic of San Marino. I am the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs. Ever since its beginning, the meeting for the friendship between peoples has always found in my country, San Marino, an interesting partner which has always followed with great interest this event. The Rimini meeting is in favor of the dialogue between peoples, cultures and religions. Focuses on the freedom of expression, the respect of diversity, and works for the defense of the fundamental rights and fundamental freedoms. That is to say, we are all working for the same values that are important for the Republic of San Marino ever since its creation. I am certainly not here today to describe to you the constant compliance with these values on behalf of my country. I rather would like to take the opportunity to stress that the topic of today's freedom of religion and political responsibility is very dear to the country of San Marino. Thanks to an initial international conference on intercultural and interreligious dialogue, with representatives of the three main European religions, which was organized in San Marino in 2007 by the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe. This led to a final document which commits the 47 member countries of the Council of Europe to organize a yearly meeting on this topic. This meeting, which is now its the third event, will be coordinated by my country again. Also, in the international organization to which it belongs, the action of San Marino has always aimed at understanding the reasons and the motivations of the other, and the constant defense on fundamental rights and fundamental freedoms of the singles and of the people, including the freedom of religion. At the same time, the Republic of San Marino has always been very proud of its Christian roots that lies at its origin and which have made it historically a different community compared to the other communities which are present in Italy. This strong acknowledgement is also easily recognizable in various aspects of public life, and we respect anyone who has a different religion and who wants to live differently. In this spirit, and for this specific reason, the Republic of San Marino has always supported, together with other countries, the Italian appeal at the Great Chamber of the European Court for Human Rights with reference to the case concerning the display of the crucifix in the Italian classrooms. In full awareness that complying with the religious freedom of all the others does not imply hiding any display of religions, and especially in this case a symbol which is shared by the majority of the Italian people and which is a symbol of history and culture of the country. Obviously, it is up to the political class to defend the religious sentiment of the people they represent with the convinced and profound respect of those who embrace other religions. They have to be free to profess their religions or to have no religion, even if they live in a country where their religion is not the majority. For the political world this is not easy, but it's a moral duty on the part of the politician if we are aiming to build a responsible community marked by solidarity, where all the people can participate in full awareness that they live in a country where their religious beliefs, religious feelings, or the fact that they have no religions are fully respected. Among other things, the European political class has to achieve this objective, taking into account the implementation of the European Convention for Fundamental Freedoms and Rights. So we have no choice. It's a moral duty. Inevitably, there can be no respect of freedom of religions without an opening to knowledge, always in the respect of all the different religions. There can be no knowledge or awareness of any type of diversity without a dialogue and without the mutual availability to understand each other. This is true for all the components of the life of each and every one of us, including the different religions. On the other hand, history, both the recent history and the current history, gives us evidence of the fact that politics very often is unable to manage properly the coexistence of different religions. There have been several failures which very often have led to wars and clashes of culture, implying hundreds of thousands of casualties and victims, very often innocent, and thus being unable to provide the hope of a better future to these people. I think that the ability to solve these problems and manage these problems that unfortunately since many centuries have led to wars and clashes, well, that this management has become an absolute priority for the international community. History has taught us that these conflicts are never solved by themselves. The only solution is a strong political will leading to concrete and strong actions, taking into account all the parties. This strong political will is not always present or has not always been consistently present. Only the ability to do this will make our international community more credible in front of all the peoples and will guarantee peace and prosperity for all the regions of the world which, after so much suffering, are entitled to this. Mr. President, I am sure that also this year Rimini meeting will be very successful, and I would like to extend to the Rimini meeting the welcome and the wishes of good luck on behalf of the citizens of San Marino. I'm sure they will continue to encourage the respect of fundamental freedoms for all the people, knowing that the ability to do this will make us stronger and not weaker any community, irrespective of its size. Thank you very much.
Ringrazio il segretario di Stato di San Marino.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mularoni. So the topic of freedom of religion contains more than just persecution or discrimination. It's the public value, the impact of religion on our life, on our public life, the fact that one can live the religion experience as any other freedom. Mrs. Mularoni mentioned the story of the involvement of the European Court in Strasbourg. I think on the same topic we will hear Minister Frattini. And now, let's give the floor to the Ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. I would like to extend a warm welcome on behalf of us and all the audience here for all the suffering and the sorrow that is going on in Pakistan at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very touching that at this very difficult juncture, I've been received here with such warm feelings. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a privilege for me to address this August gathering. I'm grateful for this opportunity. The topic of today's discussion is very relevant. The core values and belief systems and the need to be understood and respected are fundamental human requirements. This is what distinguishes humankind from other creatures. Over the centuries, as the societies developed and became increasingly interactive, there have been sustained efforts to codify acceptable behavior to promote mutual acceptance and coexistence. The United Nations has developed an extensive legal framework on human rights, including the freedom of conscience and religion. It started with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Article 18 of the Declaration states, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Subsequently, the United Nations has developed a very elaborate mechanism through various conventions and covenants. Ladies and gentlemen, as a member of the international community, Pakistan adheres to the UN mechanisms and norms. But as a Muslim, for us, the Covenant of Medina has been the torchbearer. Pakistan achieved independence as a result of a peaceful and democratic struggle under the leadership of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, an Oxford-educated lawyer. In this freedom movement for Pakistan, followers of almost all religions in that region participated. Pakistan's population is more than 180 million. 97% of its people adhere to the Islamic faith, while 3% non-Muslims include mainly Christians, Hindus, and Sikhs. The principle of equality of citizens and freedom of religion were first enunciated in Pakistan by the father of the nation in his speech to the Constituent Assembly on 11th August 1947, when he said, "You are free to go to your temples, you are free to go to your mosques or to any other place of worship in this state of Pakistan. You may belong to any religion or caste or creed. That has nothing to do with the business of the state." We are starting with this fundamental principle that we are all citizens and equal citizens of one state. Now, I think we should keep that in front of us as an ideal, and you will find that in course of time, Hindus would cease to be Hindus and Muslims would cease to be Muslims, not in the religious sense, but that is the personal faith of each individual. But in the political sense as citizens of the state. So this speech of the founder of the nation has been the guiding principle for Pakistan, and a number of articles and clauses have been incorporated in our constitution declaring the equality of all citizens and all religions, and also forbidding any discrimination between citizens in the educational institutions, in the services on the basis of religion. Pakistan is comparatively a young country, but its people and the land have an old and illustrious history of over 5,000 to 7,000 years. This land has been a cradle of some of the world's most ancient and well-known civilizations. Over 2,000 years ago, Gandhara Buddhist civilization flourished in northern Pakistan, with the city of Taxila as the seat of Buddhist learning. From 1000 years BC, the Vedic civilization thrived in the Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa provinces. This is the foundation of the Hindu religion. The remains of all these civilizations are well preserved in Pakistan, and they are spread over many areas, and they have left a deep imprint on the people of Pakistan. Pakistan's Islamic heritage goes back to over 1,000 years. Islam in South Asia was spread by Sufi spiritual masters, mostly from Central Asia, who practiced and propagated universalism and love for humankind. Overwhelming number of Pakistanis subscribe to the teachings of great Sufi masters and their message of all-encompassing love and inclusiveness. That is why the Sufi shrines are thronged by followers of all religions without any discrimination of gender or religion or caste. The Sufi shrines not only offer food for soul, but also cater for nourishing the body. Every day, thousands and thousands of poor are fed at these shrines with donations by people. The decades of the 1980s, however, left a deeply negative impact on Pakistani society. The strategy adopted to reverse the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan by the international community, led by the United States, is at the source of that violation in our region. Afghanistan was the last frontier and battleground of communism. The Afghan resistance war was projected as a holy war by an alliance of believers, Muslims and Christians, against infidels, the communists, the atheists. It was not only defined as a jihad, but also around 30,000 Muslim young men, mostly from the Middle East, were brought to Afghanistan. Today, when we talk about Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and Pakistan, we are essentially talking about these very people. After the Soviet withdrawal, the US and the rest of the international community abandoned Afghanistan, and Pakistan was left with 3 million refugees, foreigners, some of whom later transformed into militants. Socio-economic cost of this burden included social conservatism in our society. The most ominous consequences of the war in Afghanistan is the monster of terrorism that we are facing today. No country has suffered more than Pakistan on account of the situation in Afghanistan and the ensuing terrorism, and no country, therefore, has a greater stake in stability, peace, moderation, and mutual coexistence. Now I come to the subject of interreligious dialogue, a subject that is very close to our hearts, because we believe no religion in the world teaches, no divine religion encourages its followers to indulge in violence, On the contrary, all religions preach love and universality. There are mutual understandings on both sides when you talk about Muslims and Christians or Jews. They stem from the same father, Abraham. Yet, we see that sometimes they have the deepest misgivings about each other. These mutual misunderstandings need to be cleared up, and mistakes made on all sides need to be rectified. It is generally believed that Muslims are extremists, they are fundamentalists, they are intolerant. That is not the case, because Islam means peace. It is a religion of peace. It is true that there is an extremist fringe that has distorted and abused the true message and teachings of Islam. There are people who profess to be Muslims and yet are involved in the most heinous crime of killing innocent people. Those who kill others and themselves and claim that it is for Islam are doing a disservice to themselves and to Islam. On the other side, Muslims also have misgivings about Jews and Christians particularly. Muslims believe that despite being the second largest religion in the world with more than 1.5 billion adherents, Islam is not widely understood. There are misperceptions about Islam and Muslims, stemming either from lack of information or deliberate misinterpretation and disinformation. The violence that we see in many countries today, in Muslim societies, particularly in Pakistan also, has nothing to do with religion, Islam or jihad. It is a great injustice to Islam to describe acts of terrorism as jihad. We can also not ignore the impact of the situation in Palestine and Iraq and other disputes that have on the minds of Muslims. Most Pakistanis share the view of others in the Muslim world that it is mostly the Muslims who are victims of oppression and occupation. They also believe that when it comes to the sanctity of their religion, symbols and personalities, double standards are practiced. It is easy to insult Muslims, defame their religion and religious personalities without any accountability and in the name of freedom of expression. There are people on all sides who like to see a confrontation and a clash between religions, who intentionally stoke the fire and create misunderstanding. This becomes even more alarming when proponents of such views have also access to various mediums of information, television, radio, newspaper, internet, whether it's Al-Qaeda or any other group. These preachers of hate are making full use of information technology revolution. They are exploiting mutual lack of information, mistrust, misunderstandings between Islam and other religions. We view these developments as divisive and dangerous. Therefore, we believe that a broad-based and inclusive dialogue is an imperative to counter the mischief mongers and to build trust and remove misunderstandings. At present, there are many initiatives on interreligious, inter-civilization dialogue, both inside the United Nations and outside. I know that Vatican also holds dialogues of this nature, but most of these initiatives are confined to the religious personalities, governments, scholars, or are discussions that are held in the confines of four walls. There is a need to make this dialogue people-centric and people-oriented. It is the responsibility of all governments, religious establishments, and religious people to broaden and publicize the outcome of their deliberations, their discussions. It is equally important to involve media in this process because, unfortunately, it has also become an instrument of spreading misunderstanding. Pakistan has been in the forefront of these efforts to promote dialogue within the Muslim world and within at the international level. And we would continue to promote all the initiatives that are aimed at creating understanding and mutual accommodation and mutual coexistence between among various religions, because this is what religions are meant to do. In the end, I want to take this opportunity to say a few words about the very unfortunate circumstances that prevail in Pakistan these days. I'm talking about the largest natural disaster in Pakistan's history, the earthquake, the floods that have struck Pakistan. 1/4 of Pakistan, a territory as big as Italy, the whole of Italy, is underwater. It has washed away the infrastructure, it has killed more than 1,600 people and displaced 20 million people. Their homes, livelihoods, schools, hospitals, roads, bridges, everything has been destroyed. According to the United Nations, the floods in Pakistan are a bigger natural disaster than tsunami, the 2005 earthquake in Pakistan, and the Haiti earthquake, all combined together. Today, more than 8 million people are facing very perilous situation, and 3.5 to 4 million children are facing death from hunger and disease. As a member of the human community, as members of this human brotherhood, I would urge you all to do whatever you can do to help the people of Pakistan at this moment. Thank you very much.
Ringraziamo.
Thank you to the Ambassador of Pakistan. I would like to remind you of the fact that for the first time we have a Christian minister for religious minorities in Pakistan. He will be hosted by the Italian government, and he's working at developing regulations on blasphemy. And now the floor to Mamadou Ndiaye, Ambassador of the Senegal Republic.
Merci, Monsieur le Modérateur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Italy, Honorable Franco Frattini, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Nigeria, Secretary of State of the Republic of San Marino, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Having been kept in Senegal by reasons that are independent of his will, His Excellency Maître Madické Niang, Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Senegal, who would have liked so much to be with you, has given me the following message precisely for you. Almost 13 centuries ago, after the conquest of Jerusalem, Omar ibn Khattab, establishing a written or signing a written agreement with the Christians from the city, declared, in the name of merciful God. This is the safeguard given by the servant of God, Omar, the commander of the believers, to the inhabitants of Ilmia, Jerusalem, guaranteeing the protection of their lives, their assets, their churches, and their crosses, independently of the state where they are and their worship in general. Their churches will neither be occupied or destroyed, and they will undergo no damage. The same is true for their properties, their crucifixes, their assets. No violence will be made on them concerning religion. And stating this, the second caliph of Islam perfectly showed what the theme of our meeting is this afternoon. That is relationship between religious freedom and political responsibility. Afterwards, in the 17th and 18th century, Pufendorf, Hobbes or Rousseau, in their aim at secularizing politics, had conceived the state as a sort of political association within which the individuals transfer their power and rights to a sovereign who must ensure the freedom and security of everyone, independently of their faith or religion. In this respect, professing individual freedom in general, including religious freedom and also the cohabitation of these freedoms, represent the essence of proper state functioning. If seen in modern times, this theme is also very up to date. Early this century, we have witnessed events which are true threats to the spirit. Some contemporary thinkers have not hesitated to say that we are in a clash of civilizations and at the end of history. If now it is really necessary to review the meaning of religious freedom, we also have to think of how important it is to restate that the state is responsible in promoting the religious freedom of citizens. Nevertheless, I am convinced that we should never lose sight of an important function, that is, the function of religion for building a conscience. And also, this can lead to forming a basic ethical consensus in the society. To say it with an important scholar, if political responsibility depends on the state, religious freedom is a fundamental right which is enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Citizens. In Article 10, it is stated that no one should be concerned about his or her opinions, even religious ones, provided that their expression does not alter the public order which is set by law. Religious freedom is intimately linked to the freedom of expression. Those who have religious belief may share them, as indicated in Article 11 of the same Declaration of Human Rights. Free communication of one's own beliefs and opinions is indeed a right. It is one of the most precious rights of man. Each citizen can write, speak and print freely. Of course, if this freedom is abused of, citizens will have to respond. All our countries acknowledge these rights in their constitutions and in the international agreements to which they are signatories. Article 19 of the Constitution of Senegal states that the freedom of conscience, the free practice of religion in compliance with the public order are guaranteed to everyone. The religious institutions and communities have a right to develop without any obstacles. They are unbound from the control of the state. They control and administer their affairs in an autonomous way. More generally, I would like to mention the African Charter of the Rights of Man and Peoples. In the preamble to this charter, it is mentioned that the partner states fight against all forms of discrimination, especially those based on race, ethnic group, gender, language, or political opinion. In other geographical areas, we can mention the European Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedom of 1950. In Article 9, it is stated, in terms of religious freedom, any person has a right to the freedom of conscience, thought, and religion. This right implies the freedom to change religion or belief, and also the freedom to express his or her own conviction or religion or belief publicly or privately through the worship, the practice, and the rites. This last part of the text highlights that the state must provide political guarantee to the protection of this religious freedom, and this, like other human rights, is part of balance in society. Religious freedom is a human right, and as such it must be protected by the state. This state responsibility must be translated through a commitment by the rulers who, through adequate political measures and administration, must allow for religious freedom. This freedom of the state, as mentioned in encyclical Centesimus Annus, published in 1991 by John Paul II, and I quote, "The state has the duty to ensure the protection of the collective goods, which are the natural and human environment." Nevertheless, if political responsibility is in the hands of the rulers and the political leaders, it is desirable that it is not only their prerogative. All citizens at different levels of responsibility should publicly fight against violations of religious freedom and advocate human freedom in general. It must be like this because today religious freedom is under the threat of racism and intolerance, hatred and discrimination among human beings. These phenomena may destroy the balance, the weak balance of power among the international communities. Interreligious dialogue is a solution to stigmatization. It is a preventive tool for the solution of or the avoidance of conflicts. It allows to teach citizens, whether they are believers or not, to live together in a peaceful way, building in a multicultural world and building a multicultural world and developing a sense of belonging to the same future. Information and communication are pivotal in this respect, but for this role to be accomplished successfully, one has to establish multilateral partnerships relying on the respect for differences and also creating a space for cooperation and consensus, which is the only guarantee for sustainable economic development. The former Secretary General Boutros Ghali said that the future can be built only in solidarity and sharing, only in being open to the others, only in being in establishing a dialogue among cultures and civilizations which have to be preserved and reconciled in their diversity, a symbolic dialogue beyond frontiers, beyond borders and oceans. Now human beings are in front of complex challenges. They require shared answers in order to create a multipolar world where intercultural changes and interreligious exchanges are realities accepted by all. Nevertheless, recent political decisions, especially in Europe, arise some questions in this respect, and legitimately so. How can we understand the logic of those who, claiming the need of dialogue among peoples, barricade themselves behind laws which harm the respect of human dignity? How can we accept the idea that in the 21st century the color of the skin belonging to one country, carrying specific symbols of a culture or religion, are still factors of exclusion and discrimination? I think it's important to reiterate this once again. Neither blind violence nor hatred for the others indeed represent a solution to the problems, but it is only through dialogues and negotiations that we can dampen controversies, accepting our differences mutually. Nowadays, among the challenges that we have as citizens of the world, respecting the specificity, the specific nature of all human beings is one of the most important priorities. Interfaith dialogue is something we advocate strongly. We, in the 21st century, have to join forces to put together all the fragments of the same religions. We are all different. No human being is exactly the same as the others. We're all different in terms of beliefs and in terms of communities, but we accept each other without any difficulties and without ethnic differences. Why can't we express this same identity at a higher level than that of the community? Ramakrishna, a wise Hinduist, rightly said, love all, love everybody. No one is different from you. Becoming aware of how different our religions are and how important a dialogue among them is represent the essence of a new humanism. Abdullah Yebad, the president of Senegal, was awarded a prize for the search of peace in 2006, and at the UNESCO he said, and I quote, "To live together in peace, we should first of all start from education and from training our children. We have to fight against a priori ideas and simplifying concepts among men and women of goodwill who are condemned to live on the same planet. Let's give priority to peaceful resolution of controversies to avoid the catastrophic traps of the last century." To show this goodwill, I'd like to give you an example from Senegal, where we have a Muslim majority, but it was led by a practicing Catholic president, Leopold Senghor, who was a practicing Catholic and was supported by Muslim dignitaries. In villages, it often happens that you have Muslims and Christians buried side by side. all the inhabitants of the villages, without any religious distinctions, make their contribution to, for example, building a mosque or the altar on a church. There is openness, an open spirit and respect for the others and their convictions. This stresses the need for interfaith dialogue in a moment when intolerance and extremism bring about conflicts in some regions of the world. The lesson we can learn is that all civilizations have a common dignity and they have to build their coexistence on mutual respect and trust. This is why Senegal, the president of Senegal, has proposed to organize a summit on Christian-Muslim dialogue in Dakar. This could be an opportunity to strengthen our willingness to live together in peace in respect of our differences. Before closing now, I would like to really thank, on behalf of the Minister, the Italian Minister Franco Frattini, for allowing me to convey this message to you, and also I'd like to thank the Meeting Foundation in Rimini. And on behalf of the most important authorities of Senegal, and also on my personal behalf, I'd like to express this great desire that this new century at last sees the advent of a world of mutual respect and tolerance, as well as understanding among all peoples. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Grazie. Grazie, Monsieur Ndiaye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbaye. And now the Ambassador of the Republic of Turkey at the Holy See. I am particularly grateful for this intervention. Ambassador Gursoy asked me to remember his friendship with Father Padavese, who was violently killed. And I think that the story of his friendship is a symbol of the fact that dialogue is indeed possible. Ladies and gentlemen, dear Minister, dear ambassadors, and dear audience. First of all, I would like to pay tribute to my dear friend who is no longer with us, Monsignor Padovese. We have been close friends for many, many years. A long-standing friendship between two members of the university, two academic, two professionals, though members of different cultures, nevertheless sharing the love for God, sharing the love for the holy state of Turkey. But I think no more tears are in order for his death. On the contrary, I think we can start off something from our friendship so as to establish again good relations between our two cultures, so that we can commit ourselves to do good, and to be engaged in philosophy and to share things. Monsignor Padovese had been a good example of an outstanding figure who had come to Turkey for his faith, to spread and deliver his faith, and he has brought love to Turkey. He provided us with teachings, and obviously he made many good friends during his stay in Turkey, including myself. This is absolutely an historic moment for all of us. We are at a turning point, and we are at a point where we feel that we have to help each other, to get to know each other. I think we have no reasons for fear, although unfortunately we do have some difficulties. And we are here exactly to face up to these difficulties, to embrace the traditions that are distinctive of all of us. We are all here on behalf of peace in the world. Now, how can we achieve these objectives? We are all connected to different traditions, but mentioning here different religions and traditions, there is something else that I would like to bring into the discussion. There is loyalty to this transcending being, the transcending being which gives us a voice, maybe in different ways, but allows us to express ourselves with the voice of our hearts. And the voice of our hearts is there to help us in going through the great adventure of life. Every different tradition has to fight within itself, first of all, the love for this transcendent being, so that we can go beyond, that we can go further, and we can go beyond our own selfishness and our individual one, and also our national selfishness. Each and every one of us is called upon to learn how to go beyond our own selfishness and how to reorient ourselves towards a universalism whose transcendence entails that we have to do something and prescribes and which gives us an order in a system. How can we achieve these objectives? I think we can start from our traditions. We have to understand the moral message in these traditions, the values that are inherent to this tradition and that are deeply felt by our hearts. As you know, the title of this year contains the word heart. That's why we have to fully understand this message using our hearts, if possible. And if we make use of our reason and with the help of philosophy, then I think that the way which is ahead of us will be easier for all of us. Within this ethical message, we have to identify the most important ethical being or person. And that's why every tradition in the light of its universal values has to understand what type of person founded the tradition. And this is the dearest figure in the world. We are here to build, to create an architecture within our own personality. And if you look at the Declaration on Freedom of Religion, in its preamble, the dignity of the human being is at the center of an ever-growing awareness. More and more people can live on the basis of their own choices of freedom and responsibilities with no ties, but only guided by their conscience and their duties. And also in the second part, the Vatican Council declares that every human being is entitled to freedom of religion, so that all the people can be free of any ties, free of ties imposed upon them by groups, by different powers, so that in terms of religion, each and every one of us is absolutely free, and so that none of us has to go against his own conscience, and we can only act according to our conscience, both privately and publicly, and both when we are alone or when we are in a group. I think what is fundamental is that all traditions in their teachings respect these words. We have to fully grasp this personality, this figure for the human dignity, which is something that sometimes we take for granted. Now, talking about religion may lead to misgivings, misunderstandings, or even to proper real dangers. But we can nevertheless recognize what is fundamental within every tradition. Our Sufi philosophers, our Sufi believers, which have already been mentioned by the ambassador of Pakistan, have taught us in Islam the intimate experience of a believer. The Sufis had already grasped in their souls the universalism which would embrace all the different beliefs and all the different cultures. All of this has always been present in the Quran. At the verse 2.136, it says we have to believe in God, to what has been revealed to us, to what has been revealed to Ismail, to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and to the tribes, and to what has been given to Moses and Jesus, to what has been given to the prophets on the part of their Lord. We have no preference for any of these. So as an ethical man, as a man who is a bearer of universal value, we have to keep in mind this excerpt of the Quran. In the essence of spirituality, there are no differences. That's why we have to grasp in our diversity that single meaning, the diversity in our unitedness. We have to understand within our identity, within ourselves, the identity of the other. This can only be possible if we can understand our own personality and our own dignity as human beings. This can only take place if we look at the other people and we see reflected in the other people our own personality. Thank you very much for your kind invitation.
Grazie all'amico Gursoy.
Thank you, our friend Gursoy. And now the Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Nigeria, Salamatu Hussaini Suleiman.
The President, Rimini meeting, Professor Emilia Guarneri, and other organizers of this great meeting, Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Italy, His Excellency Franco Frattini, Their Excellencies Ambassadors of Pakistan, Senegal, and Turkey, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by expressing my profound appreciation to the organizers of this meeting for inviting Nigeria to be part of this year's roundtable, and for the warm reception accorded to me and my delegation by the Italian government since our arrival in Italy. May I also convey the personal greetings and best wishes of my President, His Excellency Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and indeed the government and people of Nigeria, to Your Excellency Dr. Frattini, the Italian Foreign Minister, as well as the Prime Minister of Italy. Distinguished Excellencies, it is heartwarming to note that over the years, the Rimini meetings have become a rallying point to deliberate on important issues confronting the world, as well as search for relevant solutions. In the past 30 years, this forum has successfully assembled world religious and political leaders, as well as renowned writers and philosophers who examine various issues such as peace and human rights, the resources of man, freedom and religious tolerance, and indeed this year's thought-provoking theme, religious freedom and political responsibility. It is a great pleasure for me to share thoughts at this forum on the continued peaceful coexistence in Nigeria against the background of our huge diversity and occasional intra- and inter-religious conflicts. It will also afford me the opportunity to share with you the efforts of the present administration in Nigeria in promoting religious harmony among our various ethnic groups, as well as the need for global peace and development. Religious freedom is referred to as a principle that supports the freedom of an individual or community, in public or private, to uphold a particular religion, belief, practice, or worship. It also includes the freedom to change religion or not to follow any at all. Many nations, including Nigeria, consider religious freedom as a fundamental human right. Here I want to note that the Vatican Council in Rome has exemplified this, and I also want to note that the United Nations Human Rights Council in March 2009 passed a resolution against defamation of religion, regarding such defamation as a human rights violation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria guarantees the freedom of religion of all Nigerian citizens. Specifically, Section 38 of our Constitution states that every person shall be entitled to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, including freedom to change his or her religious belief, and freedom either alone or in a community with others and in public or private to manifest and propagate his religion or belief in worship, teaching, practice, and observance. Furthermore, the right of religious communities to educate their children is also protected by our Constitution, which says no religious community or denomination shall be prevented from providing religious instruction to pupils of that community or denomination. As you all know, ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria has a population of about 150 million people. Approximately half of this population is Muslim, while the other half is Christian. It is also important to note that we have some national religions which preceded Islam and Christianity. These were our traditional African religions, including worship of goddesses and gods like Ogun, the god of iron, Shango, the god of thunder, and so on and so forth. Despite emphasis on the spiritual, religion has social and political fallouts in Nigeria. And religion has always played or had important undertones in Nigerian politics. Nigerian government has, however, successfully managed to curtail religious violence through accommodative arrangements that provide for equitable representation of the country's largest groups, that is the Christians and the Muslims, in all government institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, you are no doubt aware of some of the unfortunate ethnic religious crises that have been witnessed in Nigeria in recent times. And you must also have observed the strong determination of our government towards addressing this problem. The federal government of Nigeria has set up an interreligious council, which is called the Nigeria Interreligious Council, or NIREC. It was established in the year 2000. The primary objective of this body is to create a platform for high-level dialogue between Christians and Muslims in Nigeria. The council organizes conferences to promote understanding of each other's religious beliefs, appreciate one another, and ensure mutual respect in the practice and propagation of each one's faith. The council has equal membership and is co-chaired by two eminent Nigerians. That is the Sultan of Sokoto, representing the Muslim community, who is also the president of the Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs in Nigeria, and the president of the Christian Association of Nigeria, who is the power head of the Christian body. Given the modest achievements of the Interreligious Council at the federal level, the government is actively working on the possibility of establishing similar agencies at state and local governments to encourage religious dialogue and provide platform for religious groups to engage each other with state actors on common concerns. It is also noteworthy to inform you that aside from the main activities of NAREC, as I have already stated, the agency has gone beyond by promoting dialogue and religious harmony and embarked on collaborative activities such as advocating improved social and health facilities in combating diseases like HIV/AIDS, malaria, polio, to mention but a few. The government of Nigeria and majority of Nigerians see NAREC as a catalyst that will accomplish its set goals satisfactorily. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, despite government's efforts to promote religious harmony in Nigeria, it's unfortunate that some elements on the fringes often take advantage of religion to foster their personal agenda. Through their activities, they have continued to cause disharmony and set people of different faiths against each other. The government is fully aware of the existence of such elements whose ultimate objective in some cases is to advance their political ambition and capture power. In such cases, the laws of the land have been brought to bear fully on the culprits in order to ensure public safety and security. One of such areas of crisis, as you must already know, is in an area called Jos. The federal government of Nigeria, following insistent crisis in Jos, set up a high-powered judicial commission of inquiry composed of eminent Nigerians to unravel the immediate and remote causes of this crisis. The panel just recently submitted its report with recommendations which the President of our country has pledged to implement to the letter. Nigerians are increasingly becoming aware that adherents of the two faiths, Christianity and Islam, which are the predominant ones in Nigeria, must come together in constant engagement and dialogue in order to have enduring peace and stability. In conclusion, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me once more reiterate that Nigeria is resolved to continue to uphold religious freedom of all citizens as enshrined in its constitution. The federal government has created a peaceful and stable environment in which business will continue to thrive and citizens and foreigners alike can pursue their dreams within the ambit of the law. Let me also again commend and congratulate the organizers of this meeting and the Italian government for this wonderful initiative towards promoting peace and religious tolerance. It is indeed gratifying to observe so many young people, volunteers, keenly engaged in this laudable objective. The large turnout at this meeting is a clear indication of the importance the world is continuing to attach to religious harmony as a means of achieving world peace, promoting the rule of law, and indeed sustaining world order. I thank you very much for listening.
Grazie. Nel ringraziare il ministro nigeriano.
Thank you very much. Now, in thanking the Nigerian minister and in giving the floor to Minister Frattini for the conclusive remarks of this meeting, I have to underline that despite the food for thought that has been provided to us by all the speakers, most of the comments have been positive, induce us to hope and confidence for the future of dialogue. But having said this, we all know the situation is largely compromised. Currently, the frozen conflicts, not to say the vast majority of the conflicts that are present in the world, have something to do with religion to some extent. And it is also true that if we have a contradiction in the Western world, despite the fact that we preach democratic principles, we find it difficult to manage the influx of migrants, which generates problem of coexistence that have obviously a very serious impact on our future. Now, fundamentalism, extremism, use the name of God for a project of power or of violence. This is a problem, but the inaction of Western administrations, the majority of which are doing nothing, they think that they have the truth in their hands, and they become in themselves a danger for the coexistence of us all. Now, the fact that the Italian government decided to take the lead and to state that the topic of freedom of religion is not just the fact implying that you have to defend certain groups of people. It is rather the center and the basis of a possible coexistence. We have to think of how many hopes are involved here. We have to take into account that God, whenever we have God, then the power must also take into account God. And now the floor goes to Minister Frattini. First of all, allow me to tell you that it's a great pleasure being here with the friends of the Rimini meeting. I am very grateful to the representatives of the honourable government whom took the floor, friend Mauro, who has just made this interesting introduction and who allows me to conclude this meeting. Now, talking about freedom of religion has to do with one of the fundamental questions of the responsibilities of politics. I mean, somebody like me who has a great political responsibility being a foreign minister, I feel I am directly called upon to say something and do something. I feel I am personally involved. I think the title, which has been decided by the organizers of the Rimini meeting this year, and also the title of this event, I mean the connection between freedom of religion and political responsibility, isn't it something that suggests a reflection? Which is the responsibility of the politicians now? Which one should it be the responsibility of politicians? Well, I think that first of all, the task should be that of promoting, spreading, and disseminating values and principles. And these values and principles have to do with the moral sphere, which pertains to the general topic of responsibility. But if we want to talk about the principles and values that should be promoted, fostered and disseminated, then I think that liberty, or the various liberties, all lie at the heart of the responsibility of us politicians. We politicians are there to protect this concept, spread this concept and guarantee this concept. And here the freedom of religion comes into play. Freedom of religion, which is not just one of the many freedoms. I think I can say that freedom of religion is indeed lies at the heart of our peaceful coexistence. Lies at the heart of a peaceful coexistence because it is at the same time a fundamental right of the human being, of us as individuals, but it is also a guarantee of those values that lie at the basis of any society. This is the importance of the freedom of religion. I mean, maybe we explain it in an inadequate way, and I will say something more about this in a moment. And then why is it so important to recall, stress and defend our roots, our identity and our religious values? Why is it so important to do it nowadays in a world which is more and more globalized, in an ever complex world with challenges that keep changing and that vary constantly? And now I'm also wondering why, and I'm asking this to myself and to all of it, why is it so important to stress these principles, our identity, culture and religion, in such a moment in which in many places of the world there are serious conflicts going on, sometimes frozen conflicts, much more often active conflicts, and in which the clash is at least partly related to religion. Now, I'm sure you all are familiar or remember the words of the Holy Father when the Holy Father tells us that there cannot be any religion without freedom. Well, the response to this query lies in this, because I think only a great awareness about our values and our identity will allow us to go straight to the heart of those who have different identities and different religions. I mean, if we give up our own thoughts and if we relinquish our principles, then how can we possibly go to the hearts of those who have different religions? If we start relinquishing those principles that are fundamental for us and that should never be should never be questioned, then if we do this, how can we possibly contribute to our strength and the strength of our institutions? I mean, obviously we would need more strength in terms of the identity of our Europe, which very often looks weak, unable to be strong in the world, unable to have a European soul, allowing Europe to play in the world that role that it is supposed to play. Think of the fundamental freedoms of the human being. Those fundamental freedoms are the milestone upon which the European project started. I mean, when the founding fathers, Schuman and de Gasperi, started off this great, Konrad Adenauer as well, when they all started this great project of the European constructions, well, they started off from a fundamental basis, fundamental rights and fundamental freedoms of the people. And the construction of Europe started from these principles. Now, if this is true, how can we relaunch the European project and build a stronger Europe, neglecting that at least a part of this milestone has to do with the roots, Christian roots in Europe? For us, and this is what provides us with strength, exactly like those beautiful words from the Quran to guarantee and protect the freedom of all the other different religions, without ever neglecting our own history, our own roots, our own identity. Now, you all know that, I mean, there is a discussion is ongoing on recession, the current downturn, how to overcome it, how to improve the economic situation. I don't think, I mean, we cannot do it simply by increasing our GDP or promoting our economy. It won't be the only solution for the restructuring of Europe. We have to provide Europe with a soul. We have to give Europe a human soul. Otherwise, if we take to the sea a very stormy sea, and it will be difficult to sail in this sea, because along the way, as Europeans, we will encounter countries and peoples that are proudly strong about their history and identity. And we are here, we have the desire of relaunching Europe, neglecting our own history. This would imply a weaker Europe. Now, I firmly believe in Europe, and I want a stronger Europe, therefore a Europe with a strong soul, allowing us to be a leading force in the world. Thank you very much, Mauro, for having mentioned here the initiative by the Italian government of putting forward at the Council of Europe a resolution on the freedom of religion, and for any religion. Now, why is it that until November 2009 the European Council had never come up with a resolution, a proper resolution, to state that Europe is there to promote, defend and guarantee freedom of religion in its territory and also outside Europe? Now, this is a question, this is something that might astonish us. This has never been done before. Can you imagine? Well, as Italy, the country of Italy, we have decided to take the lead and insist on the promotion of freedom of religion. But it is now fundamental that the whole of Europe will gradually grow aware of the fact that of how important it is, of how important freedom of religion is, and that it all belongs to the general framework of fundamental freedoms. We all know that the secularists, those that insist on a secular Europe and secular countries, they usually say that how can it possibly be that one of the greatest achievements of the past has been the secular state? And under this flag, with this argument, with this assumption, they attempt to persuade us all that there is a contradiction between the fact that the country is secular and at the same time it guarantees and promotes the freedom of religion. This is a mistake, this is a misgiving, and that we have to clarify this misunderstanding. because the state is secular, it has the duty, the moral duty towards its citizens to guarantee that the freedom of each and every one of us, including freedom of religion, is complied with, is respected. I mean, think about the old saying, let's give Caesar what is Caesar's and God what is God's. I mean, this is a guiding principle of Christianity. And this is also a principle that explains why the secularists are wrong and why in the history of the Gospels we have always found a clear distinction between the secular state that we fully respect and the rights of the believers that we also have to safeguard. This is the explanation whose arguments has been used to say, well, Europe has been built upon secular states, independent states that have nothing to do with religion, then how can we possibly acknowledge the Christian roots of Europe, as if this was to some extent was meant to weaken Europe? It is not true. I think that without the if the Treaty of Europe was a different one, Europe would have been stronger. Anyway, coming to Europe, I think we also come to the misunderstanding. And the misunderstanding lies in that ruling of the Court of Justice in Strasbourg, mentioned by Minister Mularoni of San Marino. The Minister of San Marino, together with other foreign ministers of other countries, they appealed against that judgment, that ruling, hoping to change it, because in that ruling of the court in Strasbourg we find the root of that misunderstanding that I have just pointed to. That specific ruling implies that one of the principles in Europe is a principle whereby in any country, thanks to our rule which is imposed upon us by the court in Strasbourg, we can forbid those symbols that lie at the center of the history of some of our countries. This is the reason why we have decided to appeal against that ruling. And let me explain this with one single word. We do not think that freedom of religion implies also living your religion in your private sphere. I think it implies also that your religion has to be lived also publicly, including the display of the crucifix in the classrooms. I think the exposure of the crucifix is a sign of unity and not of division. It's a sign of love. It's a symbol of reconciliation. And I want to be very clear on this. I mean, we've undertaken great efforts. We've had the agreement of 10 countries besides Italy that sided with us. This was unprecedented in a proceeding like this in the court of Strasbourg. I mean, countries that have a majority of Catholics, but also the Federation of the Russian Federation and other countries sided with us because they share the principle. If we were to relinquish that principle, then we would admit implicitly that the symbol of a specific religion, in this case our own religion, could also become a symbol of division and an abusive symbol for other religions. This would be the total collapse of a fundamental right of any believer, or for any religion. And then there is another key point. I think that in the name of freedom of religion, we cannot possibly, this has already been stated very clearly by the speakers who've just spoken before me, We cannot be together with those who think that in the name of a religion, in the name of a creed, you can commit an act of violence against another man. I want to be very straightforward on this. I think the current situation in the world requires a very strong stance on our part. I want to say very clearly that whoever kills in the name of Islam abuses Islam itself and the entire Islamic community in the world. They do not simply abuse the victims in the terrorist attacks. I mean, Somali terrorists that killed so many people over the past few years, and then they said that they did it in the name of Islam. They slaughter, declaring war to the West and war to the Christian community. I think these people have severely abused an entire religion which is not mine, but which is a religion that I profoundly respect, because I want to think of it as a religion that professes peace and tolerance, as has been just said by the ambassador of Turkey. And I think we have to be very clear and straightforward on this. That's why we have to invite all the believers of the world, especially those that are considering an attack perpetrated by a terrorist that is telling you, I do this in the name of Islam, then Islamic believers have to protest, I think, and point out that this has not been done in the name of Islam. This moral rebellion, this protest can be the fruit of a good dialogue between religions and civilization. Another example, there are those which in some countries of the world continue to perpetrate acts of violence, very serious ones, against young women and young children. I'm referring here to all the problem of genital mutilations, and this is done in the name of religion. The Italian government decided to put forward at the UN General Assembly a draft resolution to ban female genital mutilations. We have sponsored the significant political resolutions, and we have attempted to involve the most important African countries. We have here Nigeria and Senegal represented. They have subscribed to this resolution, and Egypt and many other. We have to stop once and for all genital mutilations in the world. And their participation in the draft resolution implies that no negotiation is possible on certain rights, the rights to life and rights to physical integrity and to the dignity of every human being. In the name of no religion will it ever be possible to abuse those rights. And then, if you allow me, one last word, gradually approaching the conclusion, the end of my reflection, something that has to do with Europe. I've already mentioned the resolution on the freedom of religion. Well, there's something more that we are striving here to do. We want to involve not only the European Council but also the UN National Assembly. We want to involve them in this important topic. Italy will table another resolution. We will table it at the General Assembly that is scheduled for this month. It will be a resolution for the freedom of religion, for the freedom of all religions, to prevent any type of persecutions in the world of believers that are persecuted because of their religion. And I really hope that if this resolution at the General Assembly will be voted in favor, then the whole international community will have achieved a huge step forward. Now, why Italy? Because the Italian government has decided to put with top priority on its agenda the topic of fundamental rights. It's an absolute priority. The Italian Prime Minister and myself, we have decided to put forward this problem also on the international agenda. So after turning to Europe successfully, we have decided to turn to the UN General Assembly, and I think this topic will trigger a debate. We have already understood that countries that are represented here today and that we have invited here are countries that, exactly like us, would like that the freedom of all religions is guaranteed at all times. You see, promoting freedom of religion and promoting dialogue between religions and cultures is a very powerful means to promote peace. It's a powerful means to promote international stability. It's a powerful means to have a positive impact on sustainable development. As I've just said, this freedom lies at the heart of a peaceful coexistence. People who talk to each other must be ready to listen to each other with honesty and transparency. This has always been one of the instruments of preventive diplomacy that Italy has been using in the past years. So we're working hard on this. We are working throughout the world to guarantee that this becomes a reality and to guarantee that in our own Europe, the Europe of the fundamental rights, all religions are absolutely free, especially in those places of cult where these religions are professed. And Italy is working with other countries so that in the world nobody will ever be punished if a Christian church is built. We think that this principle of mutuality we cannot accept that holding a mass in any country, that if you want to, you have to do it in the cellar of an embassy, as it happens. This can no longer be tolerated. We have seen horrible cases throughout the world where people die simply because they believe. Now, my focus is mostly on the Christian believers, and I'm worried about their safety, but we want to look at all believers. I mean, Christians have been killed, have been slaughtered in many countries of the world, in Afghanistan. Christian physicians have been killed simply because of the fact that they were Christian. Volunteer workers and doctors, medical doctors who were there to help, were there to provide help, killed by the terrorists, by the Taliban, simply because they were Christians. Christians have also been slaughtered in Iraq, in Pakistan, in many African countries. We are cooperating with all of these countries, and we do find cooperation, we do find support. The Pakistani government has accepted my invitation to the Minister for the Affairs of Religious Minorities, a Christian minister, Minister Bhakti, who is expected in Rome, will soon come to Rome on the 13th of September. So we will discuss as to best improve cooperation between Italy and Pakistan. I mean, as I said, many Christians were slaughtered in some provinces of Pakistan, slaughtered by extremists. Although we feel very close to Pakistan for the very serious catastrophe that this country experiences after the recent floodings. And now let me conclude by mentioning once again the wonderful slogan of this meeting. This meeting this year is guided by the sentence that nature which pushes us to desire great things is the heart. Well, I think that talking about freedom of religion, we can greatly contribute to give life to that sentence. Because if we mention here a good policy for freedom of religions, and we have to promote and desire great things. And if we want to do all this, then we need a spirit. We need an effort. We need something distinctive, which this Rimini meeting, as usual, as every single year, allows us to express in public. This particular spirit, this particular effort that allows us to talk about religion, and it comes from our heart and not just from our institutional duties.